At 9:47 this morning, a text from my husband arrived. Happy anniversary, honey. I am busy at work, but I cannot wait for tonight. Love you. I was in my restaurant's office and I looked through the window. My world just fell apart. He was right there. He was kissing a woman with red hair as if it was perfectly normal. I stood up to face them, but a stranger blocked my path and whispered, "Wait, the true story is just beginning." Thank you for listening to my story. If you connect with it, please leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. This account is fictional, but the lessons about truth and resilience are very real. It all started on a bleak Wednesday, February 14th, 2024. This was our second wedding anniversary. I went to my restaurant, Rose's Kitchen, at 7:30 that morning, long before we opened. I wanted to make a meal that would remind my husband why he fell in love with me. My office had the sweet smell of flour and cinnamon from the day before. Through the glass, I could see Carmen setting tables for the lunch crowd. Sunlight streamed into the dining room. I planned to make saffron risotto, which was Jake's favorite dish. It was the same meal I made for him on our first date 5 years earlier. I was preparing the ingredients when my phone buzzed at exactly 9:47. It was a text from my husband. It said, "Happy anniversary, honey. I am busy at work but excited for our celebration." He ended the message with, "Love you." For a single moment, a wave of hope washed over me. I let myself think we might be okay, even though we had been distant. As I went to reply, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. The flash of a navy blue jacket, a posture I knew so well it made my heart skip. I looked up through the glass. He was at a corner table less than 30 feet from me. I stood there completely still, watching him from my office. Jake was sitting inside my restaurant, inside Rose's Kitchen. This was the business I had poured my entire life into, the very place he said he could not be because he was working. He had on the navy coat I got him for Christmas. He leaned back, looking completely at ease and having no idea I was there. He was not dining alone. Across from him sat a woman with long red hair. She was leaning forward with her hand on his arm. She then stood up, went over to him and wrapped her arms around his neck. She gave him a long, passionate kiss that was not friendly at all. It was the kind of kiss that showed a deep connection. He lifted his hand to her face, just like he used to do with me. My phone dropped from my hand and clattered on the desk. Its screen was still bright with his text message about work. That moment felt like it lasted forever. I could not connect the loving message with the awful scene in front of me. My brain searched for any other possibility. Maybe it was not him. Maybe I was just exhausted and my mind was playing tricks. Perhaps it was a very strange surprise, but I knew that coat. I knew the way he sat when he was comfortable. I knew how he held a person's face when he kissed them because he did it to me so many times. There was no doubt. I was about to swing the door open and march over to their table. My hand was on the handle and I was full of anger when a gentle hand stopped me. I turned around, my heart beating fast. I was looking at a woman I had not seen in about 4 years. It was Detective Sarah Morgan, an old friend. She was in street clothes with her police badge attached to her belt. Her eyes were serious and her calm expression made me pause. "Wait," she said quietly but with authority. "Do not go out there just yet, Zoe. Something much more serious is happening." Her hand on my arm held me in place even as I wanted to run out and scream. I just stared at her. I could feel tears on my face that I had not realized were there, and my whole body was shaking. "Sarah, what are you doing here? I do not understand." My voice was a choked whisper. "I was getting coffee at the bar," she said, looking toward the front. "I come by on my days off. I saw him enter about 20 minutes ago. I saw the kiss, and then I saw you in the window. I knew what you were about to do." She squeezed my shoulder. "Zoe, if you confront him now while you are emotional, you will only warn him. You will miss your chance to find out what is really going on. Trust me on this. Men who are this bold are usually hiding much bigger secrets. I have to know what is happening," I whispered, my voice cracking. Sarah looked at me with sympathy. "Then go home," she said clearly. "Go home right now while he thinks you are still here at the restaurant. Go through his papers, his computer, his phone records. Find your proof. Document everything. Take photos, save copies, and then you call me." She gave me her business card. "But if you go to him now with nothing, he will deny it all. He will make you think you are the crazy one. He will hide his tracks. Do not give him that power." I looked through the glass again. Jake was standing up, pulling out his wallet and leaving a $20 bill on the table. The red-haired woman had already left. Sarah was right. Confronting him would only lead to more lies. But if I went home, I could find the real answers. "Okay," I whispered. Sarah squeezed my shoulder. "Be smart, Zoe. Be careful and let me know what you find." The second Jake was gone at 9:52. I grabbed my coat and keys with shaky hands. I did not even tell Carmen I was leaving. A pot was still on the stove. I ran out the back door, still wearing my apron, into the cold rain. The drive home is usually 12 minutes, but that day I made it in 8. When I pulled up, Jake's car was already there. I unlocked the front door and entered the silent house where everything looked normal. But I knew nothing would ever be normal again. I went to Jake's home office where the door was slightly open. His desk was a mess of papers. The one on top was a petition for divorce. It listed Jake Michael Carson as the one filing and me, Zoe Maria Martinez, as the one being served. It was completely filled out with his signature in blue pen. Only the line for my signature was blank. Under that paper was a valuation of Rose's Kitchen for $2.8 million. I found an email from Marcus Brennan dated November 3rd, 2023. It said, Jake, we can finalize the deal once you have her power of attorney. The $2.8 million price is firm. Make sure she signs before October 28th. After the sale, the money was to be moved to an account overseas. A different email from February 11th said that the red-haired woman would handle the emotional part of the plan. She was on board. At the bottom of the pile, I saw a printed text exchange. The contact name made my blood run cold. Maya, my sister, the red-haired woman was my own sister. It was February 14th, 2024. It was now 2 o'clock in the afternoon. For almost 3 hours I had been staring at all the documents. I was trying to make sense of any of it. Jake was not there. His car was gone. He was still out with her, with Maya. The more I sat there, the more I understood that I did not know my husband or my sister. The printed text with Maya's name lay on the desk like an accusation. I read it over and over again. I hoped I was wrong, that it was a different Maya, but it was not. The phone number was hers. The picture was of her from our ugly sweater party 2 Christmases ago. My little sister, the one I took care of after our mother passed, the one who would get into my bed during storms, that Maya. I had to know everything. I had to know how deep the betrayal went. I rose from the chair and went back to Jake's office. His laptop was closed on the desk. I had never touched his computer. He always said it was for his job and was filled with boring contracts. He told me I would have no interest in it. I trusted him. I trusted everything he told me. My hands were steady now. I guess anger does that. It burns away the shock and leaves a cold focus behind. I opened the laptop. The screen lit up with a password prompt. I typed in the password he used for everything, from our television account to our bank account. It was 2022, the year we got married, the year he promised to love and protect me forever. The laptop screen glowed. I was in. His desktop was surprisingly clean. A few folders were labeled work, taxes, and personal. I opened his email program. The inbox had hundreds of messages. I scanned the subject lines, looking for anything strange. Then one caught my eye. Redal finalization timeline. It was from Marcus Brennan, a director at Cascade Dining Group. I opened it. The messages went back 4 months to October 10th, 2023. It said, Jake, once you get power of attorney for Rose's Kitchen, we can finalize the deal in 72 hours. The $2.8 million is ready to be sent. Make sure she signs it without a fight. We cannot have legal problems. A message from November 3rd, 2023 said the deadline was now 90 days. Make sure she is weak enough to sign before then. Use emotional pressure, health problems, anything you can. The red-haired contact will assist with the emotional side. She has agreed. The red-haired contact. My heart pounded as I scrolled down. Another email from January 22nd, 2024 read, Your contact is confirmed. M is on board. She will keep Rosa distracted and emotionally unstable. After the power of attorney is signed, you transfer the business to us. We will send the $2.8 million to your offshore account in the Cayman Islands, account number 847392. Then you are free to begin again with M in Seattle. Maya's Table is set to open in the third quarter of 2024. Congratulations, Maya's Table. I couldn't breathe. They were naming a restaurant after my sister. It was the same one Jake promised we would open together, the one we daydreamed about on our honeymoon. I had sketched layouts for it in my cookbooks. He was giving her everything. He was giving her my entire life. I clicked on the personal folder. A folder inside was named M. I opened it and saw dozens of photos. There were pictures of Jake and Maya in Seattle. They were at Cannon Beach, the same place he proposed to me 3 years earlier. In one photo, her hand was on his chest and he was kissing her neck. The pictures dated back 18 months, a year and a half. They had been together for a year and a half. I felt like I was drowning in deception. I opened his messaging app. His chat with Maya was at the top. I scrolled to their last conversation from yesterday, February 13th, 2024 at 11:47 at night. Maya asked, Tomorrow is your anniversary with her, right? Can you really do this? Jake replied, "Don't worry, baby. I will send her a nice text in the morning to keep her calm. By October, this will all be over. It will be us, Maya's table, and a baby. That is our plan." Maya wrote back, "I want our baby soon, Jake. Promise me." Jake's final text was, "I promise, baby, soon." I snapped the laptop shut, shaking the whole desk. My hands trembled, not from shock, but from pure rage. The betrayal was so deep it felt like my bones were cracking. Maya wanted his baby. My own sister wanted to carry my husband's child. She wanted the life I believed was mine. And Jake had been playing both of us. He promised me a future while plotting to steal my family's business. He promised her a future built on a foundation of lies. But something else stuck in my mind from Marcus Brennan's email. Make sure she is weak enough to sign. Emotional strain, health issues, whatever it takes, health issues. I had been sick since November. The nausea, the exhaustion, the stomach cramps every morning. I had told myself it was only stress. I blamed the pressure of managing the restaurant, but what if it was not stress? What if Jake was making me sick? My stomach twisted itself into a knot. I bolted to the bathroom and barely made it to the toilet before I was sick, acid burning my throat. Shaking and crying, I finally sat up and saw it on the counter. Jake's travel bag was unzipped. Next to his razor was a small brown bottle. I picked it up, my hand shaking. The label said ipecac syrup to be used to cause vomiting in cases of poisoning. The expiration date was March of 2025. The bottle was half empty. My mind raced as I stared at it. Ipecac. This was the reason I had been so sick. Jake was poisoning me. Not enough to kill me, just enough to make me weak and helpless. He wanted me to be desperate enough to sign anything to feel better again. Make sure she is weak enough to sign. Oh my god, I stumbled back to the office with the bottle and opened the laptop again. This time I checked his search history and there it was. Searches from 3 months prior. How to cause nausea without detection. Oregon laws on power of attorney. Can a forced business sale be challenged? He planned all of it. He planned every single detail, and Maya, my own sister, had helped him. I do not know how long I just sat there while the shattered pieces of my life finally came together, each one cutting me more deeply. But when I closed the laptop for the last time and stood to look at the rain outside, I was no longer crying. The shaking had stopped. I felt cold, clear, and focused. Jake and Maya think they can steal my entire world. They are completely mistaken. Because now I know the truth. My grandmother Rosa always said that knowledge is the sharpest knife in the kitchen. I just needed to figure out how to use it. First, I had to confirm what Jake was putting in my coffee. I needed solid proof. It was February 15th, 2024, a Thursday at 6:30 in the morning in our kitchen. I had not slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that small brown bottle. Half of the ipecac syrup was gone. Lying in the dark, hearing Jake's steady breathing, I imagined every morning he smiled as he put poison in my coffee. He came home late after 11 o'clock. I heard his keys and his footsteps on the stairs. I kept my eyes shut and my breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. He got into bed like it was any other night, not like he had just left my sister after planning to ruin my life. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the bottle at his head and ask him why. But I remained silent. To beat him, I had to be smarter. I required hard evidence. So when the alarm went off at 6:30, I got out of bed. I went through my normal morning routine. I brushed my teeth, pulled my hair back, and put on my old Portland Trailblazers hoodie. I walked into the kitchen as if it were a typical Thursday. Jake was already at the counter in his gray shirt and sweatpants as the coffee maker finished brewing. He turned and gave me the same charming smile I fell for 5 years ago. "Morning, babe," he said, acting as if he was not plotting to destroy me. "Morning," I replied, my voice steady. I stood in the doorway with my arms folded, watching him. He took two ceramic mugs from the shelf. They were the ones from the Hood River Farmers Market with painted strawberries. He poured coffee into each mug, steam rising from them. He then went to the fridge for my almond milk. As he did this, his other hand slipped into his sweatpants pocket. The movement was fast, just long enough to pull out a small item. It was the same brown glass bottle I found. My stomach clenched, but I did not flinch. I kept my face blank and just watched. He unscrewed the cap and tilted it over my cup. A few clear drops fell into the coffee. He then put the cap back on, slid the bottle into his pocket, and reached for the milk as if nothing happened. The whole action took less than 5 seconds. If I had blinked, I would have missed it. He stirred both cups with a spoon, the metal making a soft clinking sound. Then he brought me my coffee with that same familiar smile. "Here you are, darling, extra almond milk, just how you like it." I took the mug, my fingers brushing against his. My hands were perfectly steady. I would not let them shake. "Thank you," I said. I raised the mug to my lips and pretended to take a sip. I noticed the smell first. It was sharp, bitter coffee with another scent hidden beneath it. A chemical smell. Something was horribly wrong. I barely let the liquid touch my lips before I lowered the mug. It is perfect, I lied. Jake leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee and looking at his phone. He was likely texting Maya, planning their next move. I watch him over the rim of my coffee mug, pretending to sip, and feel my insides turn to stone. For 3 months, the man I married and trusted with everything has been feeding me poison every day. It started back in November, I remember now. A deep exhaustion and a strange sickness took hold of me. Sudden, sharp stomach cramps would hit me at the restaurant, forcing me to double over and pray I would not be sick in front of customers. I was sure something was terribly wrong with me. I blamed it on stress, an ulcer, or maybe a stomach bug that just would not quit. I went to my doctor twice. He ran tests but found absolutely nothing. He told me it might be anxiety and that I should try to relax. All that time it was Jake. He was intentionally making me just weak enough for him to control. Zoe, are you all right? Jake's voice cuts through my thoughts, making me jump. I see him observing me, his head tilted with a look of feigned concern. You look so worn out. I am fine, I say. I just did not sleep very well. You have been saying that a lot lately, he observes, setting his mug on the table. He comes closer and reaches out to smooth a stray piece of my hair. His touch makes my skin crawl. Maybe you should stay home from work today. Carmen can handle the restaurant. You need to get some rest. More rest, so I become even weaker. So I am even easier for him to handle. Perhaps, I reply, forcing a smile onto my face. I will think about it. He bends down to kiss my forehead. It feels soft and gentle, the same way he kissed me on our wedding day. I love you, Zoe, he says softly. For a split second, I nearly believe his performance. Almost. But then he grabs his keys from the kitchen counter and walks toward the door. I have an early meeting this morning. I will see you tonight. Okay, I say back. The door clicks shut behind him. I do not move a muscle until I hear his car pull out of the driveway. Then I leap into action. I find a small glass spice jar in the cabinet and carefully pour the rest of my coffee into it, getting every last drop. I screw the lid on tight, wipe the jar clean, and bury it deep in my purse. After that, I dump Jake's leftover coffee down the drain, rinse both mugs, and put them in the dishwasher. I grip the edge of the counter for a moment, just breathing. My hands are now trembling, not from fear, but from absolute rage. For 3 whole months, he has been doing this to me, and I never suspected a thing. I was completely fooled, but my eyes are wide open now, and I am about to get my proof. I pull out my phone and search for medical testing centers nearby. Providence Medical Lab. It has 4.7 stars. They open at 8 o'clock. The drive is only 20 minutes. I quickly type a message to Carmen. Can you please open the restaurant this morning? I have a doctor's appointment. I should be there around noon. She replies almost immediately. Of course, dear. Is everything okay? I stare at her text. No, nothing is okay, but it will be very soon. Yes, I type back. Just a routine checkup. I put my phone away, grab my purse with the hidden coffee sample, and head out the door. If Jake is poisoning me, I need to know what he is using. And I need proof. I need solid legal proof that will stand up in court. This is not just about me anymore. This is about Rose's kitchen. It is about my grandmother's legacy. And it is about everything Jake and Maya are plotting to steal from me. I will not let them get away with it. It is Friday, February 16th, just after 10:15 in the morning, when I pull into the parking lot of Providence Medical Lab on Northeast Gleason Street in Portland. I have been sitting in the parked car for 5 minutes with the engine off, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I am staring at the clinic's glass doors like they might swallow me whole. Inside my purse, tucked into a paper bag, is the jar of yesterday's coffee. The coffee that Jake made for me. The coffee that I saw him contaminate. I told Carmen I had a quick errand to run before coming to the restaurant. I said I was meeting a supplier on the other side of town to check on an order. She did not ask any questions. Carmen has never been nosy. She just replied, "Take your time." I was so relieved she trusted me. I did not get any sleep last night. I just lay in bed next to Jake, listening to him breathe, and wondered how he could sleep so peacefully after what he has done, after scheming with my own sister to destroy me, after spending 3 months methodically poisoning me with my morning coffee. This morning, he made coffee like he always does. He followed the same routine, gave me the same smile and the same kiss on my head before leaving. I did not drink a drop of it. I poured it out as soon as he was gone. And for the first time in many weeks, I did not feel sick by 9 in the morning. I had no stomach cramps, no dizziness, absolutely nothing. That was the moment I knew for sure. It is the coffee. It has always been the coffee. I take my purse, breathe in deeply, and get out of the car. The air is cold and damp. It is a typical Portland day in February, the kind of chill that seeps right into your bones. I cross the parking lot, walk through the sliding glass doors, and step into the waiting room. The space is spotless, almost sterile, and has a strong smell of disinfectant mixed with a lavender scent that turns my stomach. A receptionist behind a plexiglass window looks up from her computer with a polite smile. Good morning. How can I help you? I need to inquire about a toxicology test, I say, keeping my voice steady for a liquid. Her smile fades just a little. Please hold on for one moment. She picks up her phone, speaks into it very quietly, and then hangs up with a nod. Dr. Bennett can see you in a few minutes. Please have a seat. I pick a plastic chair near the window, clutching my purse tightly on my lap. The jar inside feels like it weighs a ton. Other people are in the waiting room. An older gentleman is leaning on a cane. A young woman is scrolling through her phone. A mother is trying to calm her fussy child. They are all just normal people living normal lives. I wonder if any of them are here because their spouse is trying to kill them. I really doubt it. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 minutes, a door opens and a woman in a white lab coat steps out. She appears to be in her early 40s with dark hair pulled into a neat bun and kind brown eyes behind her glasses. Zoe Martinez, she calls out. I stand up from my chair. That is me. I am Dr. Rachel Bennett, she says, extending her hand to me. Her handshake is firm and professional. Please follow me. I walk behind her down a short hall and into a small office. She gestures to a chair, so I sit down. She closes the door, takes a seat across from me, and folds her hands on the desk. So, she starts, her voice gentle. The receptionist mentioned you need a toxicology screen for a drink. Can you tell me what is going on? I pull the jar from my purse and set it on the desk between us. The coffee has settled and a dark, oily film now floats on the top. I need to know if there is anything in this, I say. Anything that should not be there, like poison or medication or any kind of chemical. Dr. Bennett picks up the jar and holds it up to the light, examining the contents. And where did you get this sample? I hesitate for a second. My husband made it for me yesterday morning. Her eyes lock with mine. A long, heavy silence hangs in the air, and you are concerned because I have been so sick. The words just come pouring out of me now. For 3 months, I have had constant nausea, vomiting, exhaustion, and horrible stomach pains. My regular doctor ran tests, but he did not find anything. But yesterday, I did not touch the coffee my husband made, and today I feel completely fine. I have zero symptoms. Dr. Bennett sets the jar down carefully. Her expression is calm, but I can see the deep concern in her eyes. Zoe, I have to ask you, do you feel safe at home? The question just hangs there between us. Not anymore, I answer softly. But I cannot do anything until I have proof. Real, legal proof. That is why I am here. She nods her head slowly, her gaze never leaving my face. I understand. We can run a full toxicology panel on this. It will screen for common poisons, prescription drugs, over-the-counter medicines, and a wide range of chemical substances. How long will that take? 72 hours, she says. We will call you the moment we have the results. And can I use this in court if I have to? If you decide to take legal action, yes, this laboratory is CLIA certified. Our results are admissible in a court of law. She pauses for a moment. But Zoe, if you are in any immediate danger, I am not, I say, cutting her off. Not right now. He does not know that I know. And I need to keep it that way until I have everything I need to finally stop him. Dr. Bennett studies me for a long moment, then she nods. All right. The test will cost $127.50. We can bill your insurance if... No, I interrupt, getting my wallet. I take out an old credit card that belonged to my mother, one I kept for emergencies. I will pay with this. Please do not send anything to my insurance. She does not ask why. She just takes the card, processes the payment, and hands me a receipt. She promises they will call me on Monday afternoon. If I feel unsafe before then, she tells me to call 911 or her directly. She hands me her business card. I put the card and the receipt into my purse. I thank her and I sincerely mean it. She walks me back to the waiting room, resting a hand on my shoulder for a second. Please be careful, Zoe. I exit the clinic and get back into my car, the cold air stinging my face. I just sit there for a minute, my hands shaking as I try to breathe. It is done. In 72 hours, in just 3 days, I will finally have an answer about what Jake has been putting in my coffee. Once I have that proof, I can decide what to do next. I start my car and pull out of the parking space, making my way to Rose's kitchen. While driving, something occurs to me. I feel remarkably better today. My thoughts are finally clear and sharp. My stomach feels settled. My head does not ache. After months of feeling unwell, I finally feel like my old self again. This realization is almost as scary as the poison because it shows Jake was succeeding. He was taking me apart piece by piece, and I had no idea it was happening. But I see everything now. 72 hours. In only 72 more hours, I will find out if my husband tried to poison me. Then I will know exactly what to do to stop him. It is Monday afternoon, February 19th, too, and I am at Rose's kitchen. I am preparing for dinner service when I feel my phone buzz in my apron pocket. I wipe my hands on a towel and pull out my phone. The call is from an unknown number in the Portland area. My chest tightens with anxiety. I walk to the back office to take the call. Hello, Zoe. My name is Dr. Rachel Bennett from Providence Medical Lab. Her voice is calm, but I can detect something underneath. It could be urgency or perhaps concern. Can you please come to the clinic right now? I have your results and I think we need to discuss them in person. My stomach drops. Is it? Did you find something? Yes, she answers gently, and I think you will want to see this as soon as possible. I tell Carmen that I need to step out for an hour. I grab my coat and keys, and I am on the road before I can even think twice. The clinic is a 12-minute drive, but it feels like an eternity. I grip the steering wheel tightly, but my mind is spinning. They found something. They have the proof. By the time I get to the parking lot, my heart is pounding so hard I can feel the beat in my neck. Dr. Bennett is there to meet me in the same room we used before. She stands up when I come in, points to the chair, and closes the door behind me. A light brown folder is on the desk between us. She sits down, opens it, and slides a lab report over to me. Zoe, she starts in a soft voice. The results came in this morning. I wanted to call you earlier, but I had to double check with the lab because this is extremely serious. I lower my eyes to the paper. The page is filled with complex terms with lists of chemicals and their measured amounts. But one line near the top is highlighted in yellow. Ipecac syrup detected 15 milliliters per 250 milliliter sample. For a second, my vision blurs. I blink hard, trying to focus. Ipecac, I say, my voice barely a whisper. That is what makes people throw up, right? Yes, Dr. Bennett confirms. It is a syrup used to induce vomiting after an accidental poisoning. It used to be in every first aid kit, but we no longer recommend it because it can be dangerous if used improperly. At a dose of 15 milliliters in a standard cup of coffee, it would not be fatal right away, but it would cause constant nausea, vomiting, fatigue, abdominal pain, and general weakness. I look up and meet her eyes. For how long? If you consume this every day for several months, it could lead to very severe long-term problems. Dehydration, electrolyte imbalances, muscle weakness, and even permanent damage to your digestive tract. She pauses for a moment. Zoe, someone has been poisoning you on purpose, and based on our conversation, this has been going on for at least 3 months. The room feels like it is tilting. I grab the edge of the desk to steady myself. 3 months, it started back in November. The sickness, the exhaustion, the pain. I thought I was getting sick. I thought I was just overworked. I thought it was all in my head. But it was Jake. For 3 months, he smiled at me, he kissed me, he handed me my coffee, and he poisoned me. Zoe, Dr. Bennett says, leaning forward. Her voice is firm but kind. You have to report this to the authorities right away. This is a criminal act. The person who did this is guilty of assault and possibly even attempted murder. You need protection. I shake my head. No, I cannot do that. Why not? Because this is not enough, I say, pointing to the report. I need more than just this. I have to know what his entire plan is. If I go to the police now, he will deny everything. He will say that I am making it all up or that I put the ipecac in my own coffee to frame him. He is smart, he has money, he has a whole team of lawyers, and he is already trying to steal everything from me. Dr. Bennett's face grows serious. Zoe, if he is poisoning you, he could become even more dangerous. You are not safe. I understand that, I say with a calm voice. But I am not drinking his coffee anymore. I stopped 4 days ago. He does not know that I am on to him, and I need to keep that advantage until I have enough evidence to stop him for good. She studies my face for a long time, then nods her head slowly. All right, but you have to promise me one thing. If you feel like you are in danger, if anything changes at all, you will call 911 or you will call me. She pulls out a business card and writes a number on the back. This is my personal cell phone. You can call me anytime. I take the card, fold the report, and put them both into my purse. Thank you, Dr. Bennett, for everything. She walks me to the door and rests a hand on my shoulder for a moment. Please be safe, Zoe. I walk back to my car with the heavy weight of the lab report in my purse. This is the proof of what Jake has been doing to me. The evidence that he was slowly breaking me down, making me sick and desperate so that I would sign away Rose's kitchen without a fight. Make sure she is weak enough to sign. That is what the email from Marcus Brennan said, and that is exactly what Jake did. He poisoned me. Every single morning for 3 months, he looked me right in the eye while he was poisoning me. I sit in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel, just staring ahead. The anger I have been holding in for 5 days now becomes something colder, sharper. Jake thinks he is in charge. He thinks he has already won. But he is wrong because now I have proof. I have legal, documented, lab confirmed evidence. And that changes everything. I start the car and pull away, my mind already working on the next step. Jake does not just want Rose's kitchen. He wants me gone completely, and Maya, my own sister, is helping him do it. But they both made one huge mistake. They underestimated me. They thought I would be too tired, too sick, and too broken to fight back. They never dreamed I would find the bottle. They never imagined I would have the coffee tested. And they definitely never thought I would have a secret weapon of my own. But I do. I always have. My grandmother made sure of that. Abuela Rosa did not just leave me the restaurant. She left me something else. It is something Jake and Maya and Marcus Brennan know nothing about. It is something I have not touched in 5 years, not since the day she gave it to me. But I think now is the right time to use it. Jake wanted to make me weak. He tried to break me. But he has no idea that I am the one who has the advantage now. By the time he realizes what is happening, it will be far too late. It is Tuesday night, February 20th, just after 7 o'clock. I am standing at the doorway of Abuela Rosa's old bedroom. This room was hers before she passed away 5 years ago. I have barely set foot in here since then. The house is completely quiet. Jake texted an hour ago to say he was working late, which probably means he is with Maya. I do not care anymore. Let him dig his own grave. I am here tonight because I needed to be in a place that felt safe, a place that reminded me of her. The room still has the faint smell of her perfume, Chanel number 5. That was the single luxury she allowed herself. The walls are still covered with old photographs. There is Rose's kitchen in the early days, just a tiny storefront on Division Street. There is Abuela in her apron, a little flower on her cheek, smiling at the camera, and there is a picture of me as a little girl, sitting on a stool beside her, learning how to knead dough. I miss her so much. I wish she were here. She would know exactly what to do. She always knew. I walk over to the old wooden dresser in the corner. She found it at a garage sale back in 1979 and refinished it herself. On top of it, in a place of honor, is her recipe book. This is not the printed version they use to sell at the restaurant. This one is much older and much more personal. It is a leather-bound journal, now 45 years old. The cover is soft and worn from decades of use. Inside are all of her most famous recipes written in her elegant, slanted script. Mole negro, tamales oaxaqueños. I have looked through this book so many times since she died, but I have never been able to bring myself to cook from it. It always felt like saying a final goodbye, but tonight I reach for it. I do not know why. Maybe I just need to feel close to her. Maybe I need to remember that I come from a line of strong women. I pick up the book carefully, cradling it in both hands, and sit down on the bed. The leather on the spine is cracked and some of the stitches are broken. As I hold it, a corner of the cover catches on my sleeve and I hear a soft tearing sound. My heart stops. Oh no, please do not be broken. I examine it more closely. The leather on the inside flap of the cover has pulled away, revealing something underneath. It is not the cardboard I expected to see, it is paper. I set the book in my lap and carefully peel back more of the torn leather. There, hidden in a secret pocket between the cover and the binding, are three folded pieces of paper. My hands are shaking as I pull them out. The first is a letter, written in blue ink in Abuela's handwriting. I unfold it gently, smooth out the creases, and start to read. My dearest granddaughter Zoe, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. This means a betrayal has happened. I feared this day might come. Your grandfather and I gave everything to Rose's kitchen. Our success, however, had a price. I know achievement can breed a dangerous kind of jealousy. So I prepared a way to protect you when I was gone. I have set aside a trust fund for you, my child, worth $850,000. The account is at Wells Fargo Bank under my name, managed by my lawyer, Benjamin Hartley. He is a trusted friend of 40 years who I trust with your life. The fund comes with one important rule. It unlocks only with evidence that someone is trying to take Rose's kitchen from you. If you are reading this, I know you hold that evidence now. You need to contact Benjamin. Present him with all of your findings. He will help you access the money. Use it to protect yourself and save the restaurant. This is your shield now, Zoe. Please use it wisely. My love for you is eternal. Abuela Rosa. The words blurred as I read them. Warm tears streamed down my cheeks and I let them fall. She knew this could happen. She anticipated I would need support and she provided it. Even from beyond, she is protecting me. I wiped my face and glanced at the next document she left. It was a formal certificate from Wells Fargo Bank dated January 2015, a decade ago. It confirmed the Rosa Martinez Family Trust Fund and the principal amount, $850,000. The third paper was a simple business card for Benjamin Hartley, attorney at law of Hartley and Associates. A phone number was listed below his name. I sat there for a long time, clutching her letter and the certificate, the book on my lap. $850,000. It was more than enough to afford the top lawyers in Portland. It was enough to fight Jake and Marcus Brennan. It was enough to save my grandmother's dream. But it also proved she had faith in me to guard her legacy. She knew I would never surrender. I carefully folded the letter and put it back in the book with the other papers. I stood up and moved to the window, looking at the street below. City lights started to glow, casting long shadows across the pavement. Somewhere out there, Jake was with Maya, thinking he had already won. He believes I am too broken and scared to fight back. He is wrong. Abuela gave me the tools to defend myself. Now I have to use them. Tomorrow, I will phone Benjamin Hartley. I will present the lab results, the emails, and the forged signatures. I will show him everything. Then I will secure the trust fund, and my battle will begin. It was Wednesday, February 21st, just past 3 in the afternoon, when I entered the law offices of Hartley and Associates on 3rd Avenue. The office was in an old brick building from before the war with high ceilings and beautiful molding. The air smelled of old books and polished furniture. A receptionist with silver hair greeted me with a smile. "You must be Zoe Martinez. Mr. Hartley is expecting you." She led me down a corridor lined with framed degrees and old photos of Portland. My heart pounded in my chest. I had called that morning, my voice unsteady. "My name is Zoe Martinez. My grandmother, Rosa Martinez, wanted me to call Benjamin Hartley. It is extremely urgent. A meeting was set for 3 o'clock that same day. And now I was there, my purse holding a large envelope with Abuela's letter, the lab report, and all the documents. The receptionist stopped at a heavy wooden door with a brass plate that said Benjamin Hartley, Esquire. She knocked softly before opening it. "Zoe Martinez is here." A strong, kind voice from inside answered, "Please send her in." I walked into the office as he rose from his desk to greet me. Benjamin Hartley was exactly as I had pictured. He was in his mid-60s with perfectly combed silver hair, glasses with gold rims, and a classic gray suit that looked distinguished. He offered his hand. "Zoe," he said. The way he spoke my name felt comfortable and familiar, bringing a lump to my throat. "Please, sit down." I took a seat in a leather chair as he returned to his own, placing his hands on the desk. He looked at me for a moment with a kind, sad expression. "You look just like her," he said gently. "Like Rosa. You have her eyes, her spirit." I blinked away the sudden tears. "Not here. You must have been friends for a very long time." 40 years, he said. "She came to me in 1984 when Rose's Kitchen was just beginning. We became great friends. She was one of the strongest people I ever knew, and she always talked about you. She was so proud." A sharp pain tightened in my chest. "She told you about the trust." "Yes, she did," he said, his voice turning serious. 10 years ago. It was her life savings of 30 years, $850,000. She made me promise to keep it a secret, even from you, unless someone tried to steal the restaurant." I slowly nodded. "Someone is trying." I pulled the large envelope from my bag and set it on his desk. Benjamin opened it and studied each document. He read Abuela's letter first, and I saw his face grow tight. Then he moved to the Providence Medical Lab report. His eyes widened at the word Ipecac. He examined the forged divorce papers next, then the emails from Marcus Brennan. He read every word carefully, and his expression became darker with every page. When he finished, he put the documents down and looked at me. "Zoe," he began, his voice calm but sharp with anger, "this is far more than fraud. This is attempted murder." "I know," I whispered. "That's why I am here. I need your help." Benjamin leaned forward. "You have my help and you have Rosa's. She worried someone would target you and the restaurant. That is why she created the trust with that one rule. It can only be used when there is proof of an attempt to steal Rose's kitchen." He gestured at the papers, and this is that proof. It is solid, documented, and undeniable. A feeling of intense relief washed through me. "So the money is available?" "Yes," he said, "but we need to act fast. I will file an emergency motion with the Multnomah County Court this afternoon. We will request 3 things. First, a temporary order to freeze all marital assets, including the restaurant. This will prevent Jake from selling it. Second, we will ask for the immediate release of the trust, giving you the necessary funds. And third, we will request a formal criminal investigation into Jake Carson for forgery, fraud, and poisoning." My pulse quickened. How long will that take? With an emergency motion and evidence this strong, a judge can rule within 48 hours. If approved, Jake will be blocked from touching Rose's kitchen and you will have full control of the $850,000. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. And the poisoning? Benjamin's expression became very serious. That is a police issue. The court can trigger an investigation, but the police will need your cooperation. Do you know anyone there I can call? I instantly thought of my high school friend, Detective Sarah Morgan. I had not reached out to her, but this was the moment. I do, I answered. Benjamin nodded. Good. The moment we file, Jake will know something is wrong. He will start to get nervous. Scared people can be reckless. You will need someone looking out for you. I will call her, I promised. He stood, and I did too. He walked around the desk and gently placed a hand on my shoulder just as my grandmother used to. Rosa loved you more than anything, Zoe. She would be so incredibly proud of you right now. The tears came again, and this time I did not stop them. I miss her so much. I know, he said gently, but she is still with you. She lives on in you, in her restaurant, and in this fight you are about to win. I left his office an hour later with a copy of the court petition and a hearing scheduled for Friday, February 23rd. As I walked to my car, the sun broke through the cloudy Portland sky. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. My grandmother had looked out for me, even in death. She gave me what I needed to fight back, and now with Benjamin's help, I was ready. But Jake was still a problem. He was a dangerous man who needed to be stopped. I needed him to answer for his crimes. I pulled out my phone and found the name I was looking for, Sarah Morgan. It had been a few months since we talked, but I was certain that if anyone could help, it was her. I hit the call button. On Saturday morning, February 24th, just after 11, I found a booth at Stumptown Coffee Roasters on Southeast Division Street. My order was a simple black coffee. 10 days had passed since Detective Sarah Morgan stopped me from confronting Jake and my sister inside my own restaurant. I was meeting her because I finally had solid proof. Just yesterday, a judge had granted Benjamin Hartley's emergency request. Jake was now legally forbidden from entering Rose's kitchen. The restraining order was in effect and the trust fund from my grandmother was officially mine. But a simple court order was not nearly enough. I needed to see Jake behind bars. That was why I reached out to Sarah the night before. Sarah walked into the coffee shop at 11:15. She had on jeans and a black leather jacket, her badge clearly visible at her waist. She navigated the crowded cafe with the same alert confidence she had shown 10 days ago. She spotted me immediately and took the seat across from me. Zoe, she began gently, how are you holding up? I met her gaze directly. I am holding up because you were there that day. If you hadn't stopped me, I would have destroyed my own case. Thank you, Sarah. She simply nodded. I am glad I could be there. Now, what did you find? I slid a thick folder across the table to her. The truth was far worse than a simple affair. For 3 long months, Jake had been slowly poisoning me. He was conspiring with a man named Marcus Brennan to take over my restaurant, and their plans went much deeper than that. I watched Sarah's expression shift the moment she opened the folder. Her eyes widened as she saw the toxicology results. Her jaw tightened as she scanned the emails between Jake and Marcus. Her face grew more grim with every single page she turned. The first document was the lab report. It confirmed the coffee sample contained 15 milliliters of ipecac syrup. This was enough to induce chronic nausea, vomiting, and severe fatigue. Sarah could only whisper, "Good heavens. How long was he doing this to you?" she asked. For 3 months, from November until February, I told her. Each morning, without fail, he would prepare my coffee with a dose of poison. I simply believed I was falling ill. The doctors could never figure out what was wrong. The whole time, Jake was just making me weaker. He intended for me to be too exhausted to resist when he made his move to take the restaurant. Sarah then focused on the emails between Jake and Marcus. I saw the words that were burned into my memory. Make sure she's weak enough to sign. And then another message. The Ipecac is working. She's losing weight and has no energy. After I signed, they planned to move $2.8 million into an offshore account. She set the documents down and looked at me, her eyes blazing with anger. This is attempted murder, she stated. Poisoning someone to coerce them is at minimum aggravated assault. This could even rise to the level of attempted homicide, she added, tapping an email from Marcus. And Marcus Brennan will be charged as a co-conspirator. This involves conspiracy and financial exploitation. They are both looking at significant prison time. There is more to it, I said, producing the fraudulent divorce documents. I also had a business valuation for $2.8 million. Then I showed her the fake fertility clinic records Jake had given to my sister Maya. The truth was, he had a vasectomy 5 years ago. I also included photographs of Jake and Maya together at various hotels and restaurants. Sarah examined each item with great care, scribbling notes. When she finished, she took a long, slow breath. In my 10 years on the force, this is one of the most thoroughly documented cases of abuse and fraud I have ever encountered, she said. We have toxicology, emails, financial records, and photographic evidence. Do you want me to bring Jake in right now? I shook my head no. Benjamin advised that the evidence is powerful, but it is not direct, I clarified. The lab confirms poison in the coffee, but it does not prove Jake put it there. The emails show Marcus's intent for the restaurant, but not Jake's coercion. If we move to arrest him now, his attorney would likely create reasonable doubt. I leaned forward. I need something direct. I need a video of Jake poisoning my coffee or a recording of him admitting to his actions. Sarah nodded, understanding completely. So we lay a trap, she concluded. You will install hidden cameras in your house with a focus on the kitchen. Oregon law permits you to record conversations without his knowledge, and you are legally allowed to record inside your own residence. You have to prompt him to talk. Ask him careful questions that make him feel comfortable enough to confess what he has done. She glanced over the documents one more time. What is the plan for Marcus and your sister? A knot formed in my stomach just thinking about them. Have them followed. Document every time they meet, Sarah instructed. If you can capture Jake, Marcus, and Maya discussing the entire scheme together, that will prove a conspiracy. 3 individuals coordinating a criminal act. Is that a definite win? I asked. Sarah took my hand, her gaze intense. We are going to catch him, Zoe. I give you my word, but you must remain intelligent and patient. If Jake discovers that you are aware of his plan, he could become unpredictable. He might panic and resort to something even more drastic. She then took out a business card and jotted down a second phone number on the back. That is my personal cell, she explained. If you ever feel unsafe or if Jake makes any kind of threat, you call 911 first. Then you call me right away, no matter the time of day or night. Do you understand me? I accepted the card from her and nodded. I understand. Thank you so much, Sarah. She gave me a small, encouraging smile. You are much stronger than you think, but I am happy to help. She rose from the booth and collected the files. I am going to start running background checks on Marcus Brennan and his financial links to Jake. Your job is to buy the cameras, get them installed, and record absolutely everything. When this is all over, Jake Carson is going to be in prison for a very long time. I stayed and watched her go. For the first time since my entire life fell apart, I felt a small flicker of hope. It was Wednesday evening, February 28th, around 9:45. I sat on my bed with my laptop, reviewing footage from a hidden camera. I had put it in place 4 days earlier. The device was incredibly small, tinier than a tube of lipstick, and concealed inside a picture frame on Jake's desk. The photo was from our wedding day, showing us smiling as if we had all the time in the world. I had purchased it online for $89 with 2-day delivery. It captures both video and audio, uploading everything to a secure cloud server. Sarah insisted that I document everything, so that is what I did. Each night, once Jake was asleep, I would review the recordings from the day. I fast-forwarded through countless hours of him simply typing or making phone calls. Most of the footage was completely useless, but this evening I discovered something important. The recording was from the previous day, February 27th, at 2:47 in the afternoon. I had been at my restaurant, Rose's Kitchen, preparing for the dinner service. The video captured Jake alone in his office, holding the phone to his ear. I increased the volume. His voice came through with perfect clarity. Rick, this is Jake Carson. We were introduced at the contractor event last month. A short pause followed. I could just make out a man's muffled voice from the other end. Oh, yeah, I remember you. What can I do for you? I have a job that I need you to handle for me, Jake said, leaning back in his chair. The location is a restaurant, Rose's Kitchen at 428 Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard. All right, the man responded. What does the job involve? It is a gas line inspection, Jake said with a smooth tone. However, I need you to perform a very specific task, he went on. I need you to loosen one of the valves, not completely, just enough so that it creates a gradual leak, something that would not be noticed right away. A long, tense silence came from the other side of the call. Finally, the man asked, Are you being serious? Completely serious, Jake confirmed. And I am prepared to pay you $5,000 in cash. There will be no receipts, no paper trail. This is just between you, me, and the job. Another pause followed, this one even longer than the last. The man began to say, "If there is a gas leak while someone is in there, that is precisely the idea, Rick," Jake cut in. His voice was chillingly calm, as if he were ordering a meal. "I need this to happen on the night of October 28th at about 8 o'clock. I will ensure she is in the kitchen by herself after we have closed for the night." A cold dread washed over me. "She?" Rick questioned. "Who is she?" "My wife," Jake answered, "and I need to be certain she does not leave." I slammed the pause button. My hands were trembling so badly that the laptop nearly slipped from my grasp. I rewound the clip by 10 seconds and watched it again. "I need to be certain she does not leave." I played it a third time and then a fourth. With each repetition, his words felt like a physical blow to my gut. Jake was not just trying to take my restaurant from me, he was actively planning to murder me. He was hiring someone to create a gas leak to blow up the entire building with me trapped inside. I forced myself to press play and watch the remainder of the conversation. Rick's voice returned, low and uncertain. "Man, I am not sure about this." "That sounds incredibly dangerous," Rick said. "If somebody dies?" "No one will be able to connect it to you," Jake said, interrupting him. "It will appear to be a horrible accident. An old structure, a faulty gas connection, a tragic explosion. The fire department will declare it accidental. My wife will be gone. I will inherit the restaurant as her grieving husband, and I will sell it the following day. It is a clean and straightforward plan, and you will be $5,000 richer." "I am going to have to think about it," Rick said at last. "You have until March 15th to decide," Jake informed him. "After that date, my offer is off the table. Give me a call." The line disconnected. Jake set his phone down, stretched his arms, and returned to his work as if he had not just contracted a man to kill me. I shut the laptop, plunging the room into darkness as I stared at the blank wall. October 28th. That date was 8 months from now. For 8 long months, Jake had been arranging this. He had shared my home, kissed my lips, and faked his love for me, all while orchestrating my murder. My stomach churned with sickness. I stumbled to the bathroom and threw cold water on my face. The woman I saw in the mirror was a complete stranger. Her skin was pale and her eyes were hollow, filled with a deep terror. But underneath that fear, a new feeling sparked. It was a searing, white-hot anger. For 3 months, Jake had poisoned me. He had forged my signature. He had conspired with Marcus Brennan to steal my grandmother's business. He had slept with my very own sister. And his latest plan was to have me killed. He wanted me completely gone. He wanted to erase my existence so he could claim everything and begin a new life with Maya. My fingers tightened on the edge of the sink. My breathing labored. "No," I whispered to my reflection. "I will not let that happen." I walked back to the bedroom and opened my laptop again. I made 3 separate copies of the video file. The first copy went to my phone, the second I saved to a flash drive which I concealed in my purse. The third was sent to a secret email address. Next, I sent a text to Sarah. "I have proof of something. Can we meet in the morning? It is an emergency." She answered in less than a minute. "7 in the morning at my office. What is going on?" I hesitated, then wrote back, "Jake paid someone to murder me. I have the entire conversation on video." The typing bubble appeared, followed by her text. "Dear God, Zoe, are you safe at this moment?" "Yes," I answered. "He is asleep. I am okay." "Lock your bedroom door. Do not allow him inside." "I will meet you at 7, she responded. I got up from the bed and secured the lock on the door. Then I sat down again and replayed the video one final time. October 28th. He had selected the date, the weapon, and the location, but he made one giant miscalculation. He was completely unaware that I was watching his every move. He had no clue I was recording everything he said, and now the proof was in my hands. It was the direct, undeniable evidence that Jake Carson attempted to hire a killer. Tomorrow I will deliver it to Sarah, and together we will make sure he is stopped. But for tonight, I simply sat in the quiet, listening to the sound of my husband sleeping in the other room. And I came to a profound realization. I was no longer afraid. I am prepared. The day he planned is 8 months from today, but my husband Jake has no idea that I know everything. By the time he realizes what is happening, it will be too late for him. It was Tuesday, the 5th of March, just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I entered Anderson Investigations, an office in downtown Portland on Southwest Morrison Street. The air was heavy with the scent of old coffee and cigarettes, defying the no smoking sign on the wall. A man in his 50s with short gray hair sat behind a cluttered desk which was covered in folders and coffee mugs. He looked up when I walked in. "Are you Zoe Martinez?" he asked. I confirmed that I was. "Tom Anderson," he said, getting up to give me a firm handshake. Please take a seat. I sat in the chair across from his desk, holding my purse tightly in my lap. I had put Tom on the case 5 days ago. It was immediately after I showed Sarah the video evidence. The footage clearly showed Jake paying Rick Donovan to take my life. Sarah opened an official investigation, secured a warrant, and told me to lie low, but I could not simply do nothing. I needed more information. I had to understand Jake's motives, and I had to discover the extent of my sister Maya's involvement. This is why I hired Tom. I gave him instructions to follow both Jake and Maya, to document their every move, and to learn their intentions. Now he pushed a thick manila folder toward me. Here is the preliminary report, Tom said. I have been on them for 5 days. They are not being discreet. I opened the folder. The first page was a typed summary, followed by many pages of photographs. There were dozens of photos. I saw Jake and Maya checking into the Marriott downtown hotel. I saw them sharing a quiet table at Clyde Common holding hands. I saw them in the parking lot of a Fred Meyer kissing passionately. A knot tightened in my stomach, but I kept looking. They meet 3 times a week, Tom explained, leaning back in his chair. It is always the Marriott, always between 2 and 5 in the afternoon when you are at your job. They use a false name, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, and Jake always pays with cash. I nodded, my gaze fixed on the images. What other information did you find? Your sister has been seeing a fertility specialist, Tom said. The Portland Fertility Center over on Northeast Cleon. I followed her to that location twice this past week. She has appointments on a regular schedule Tuesday and Thursday at 10 in the morning. I lifted my head, trying to absorb what he was saying. A fertility doctor, so she was trying to have a baby. Tom showed me another photograph. This one pictured Maya leaving the clinic, holding a folder. Based on my observations, she started these visits back in January. She appears to be very serious about starting a family. A heavy weight settled in my chest, Maya and my husband Jake raising a child together. Does she know he is married to me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Tom simply shrugged. It is hard to say for sure, but based on their behavior, I would guess she does. They act like a couple who are making serious future plans. She talks about a restaurant she hopes to launch called Maya's Table. And he brings up the idea of moving to Seattle. The only person they are hiding their relationship from is you. I closed my eyes for a moment and took a deep, shaky breath. What is in this picture? Tom handed me one more photograph. It was a picture of Jake and Maya at the coffee shop inside Powell's City of Books. Jake was showing Maya a document. She was smiling brightly as she looked at it. I got this shot yesterday, Tom told me. I could not get close enough to see the text, but it looked like an official paper, maybe some kind of medical document. I stared at the photo, a medical document. An idea started to take shape in my thoughts. Can I see that one more time? Tom gave the picture back to me. I used my phone's camera to enlarge the image. The paper in Jake's hand had a clear logo at the top. It said Oregon Wellness Clinic. Underneath the logo, the patient's name was listed as Jake Carson. The diagnosis was a low sperm count due to an old injury. The proposed treatment was testosterone therapy. The estimated date of completion was December 2024. It felt like my heart had stopped beating. What did you see? Tom asked me. I need to make a phone call, I said, reaching for my phone. I dialed Sarah's number and she answered on the first ring. Zoe, is everything okay? I need you to do something for me, I said. I need you to check Jake's medical records. I have to know if he has ever had a vasectomy. There was a brief pause on the other end. Why do you ask? Because I think he is lying to Maya. He presented her with a fake medical document about undergoing fertility treatments. I have to know what is really going on. One moment, Sarah said. I could hear the sound of her typing. Since we have an active criminal case, I already have a warrant for his records. Let me see. I waited, my pulse pounding in my ears. Tom observed me with a look of concern but did not say a word. Okay, Sarah finally said. I have his file right here. Jake Michael Carson, born on April 12th, 1988. Oh my heavens, Zoe. What is it? He had a vasectomy, Sarah stated, her voice slow and clear. It was on August 15th, 2019. The procedure was done at Oregon Health and Science University. It says right here it was a permanent operation with no reversal on file. 2019, that was 3 years before he married me. This entire lie had been going on for the whole time I had known him. Sarah, I said, my voice trembling. He told me he simply was not ready to have kids. He said we would talk about it in the future. He was not being truthful, Sarah said gently. And if he gave your sister a fabricated medical record about his fertility, it means he is lying to her too. I finished the thought. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Tom's gaze was still on me. Was it bad news? He had a vasectomy, I explained. 5 years ago. He has been deceiving both my sister and me. I opened my laptop and logged into the cloud account where I was storing all of my evidence. I started to scan the phone messages that I had copied from Jake's phone 2 weeks ago. And that is when I saw it. It was a message Jake sent to Marcus Brennan on February 25th. It read, "Just keep them hoping, my friend. Hope is the most powerful drug. Zoe will never leave as long as she believes we are going to have children. And Maya will do whatever I want as long as she believes she can become pregnant. It is just that simple." I read his words over and over. Tears welled up in my eyes. Jake had no love for me. He had no love for Maya. He was not capable of loving anyone. He had manipulated both of us with his lies. He used empty promises to keep us in his life. He was poisoning me so I would be too weak to prevent him from seizing Rosa's kitchen. He was lying to Maya about a shared future to make sure she would help him. And his ultimate goal was to have me killed, sell the restaurant for a large sum of money, and then disappear. My sister Maya was just another pawn in his scheme, exactly like I was. But she did not know it yet. I closed my laptop and looked at Tom. "Can you keep following them?" "As long as you are paying me, I will stay on their trail." "Good," I said. "I need you to document everything. I want pictures, audio recordings, locations, times, every single detail." "I understand completely." I walked out of his office with the folder in my hands, feeling a profound sense of emptiness. Jake was driven by nothing but greed, power, and control. And Maya, my own sister, whose hair I once braided and to whom I read bedtime stories, was just another tool for him to exploit. A part of me felt the urge to warn her, to tell her that she was being used. But another part of me, the part that had seen her with my husband, heard her dreaming about her own restaurant, and knew she texted him about his non existent baby, that part thought she needed to learn this lesson the hard way. Jake had fooled us both, but now I was the only one who knew the complete truth, and I was going to use that truth to my advantage. 7.5 months had gone by since I first saw the video. It had been 7 months since I presented Detective Sarah Morgan with the recording of Jake plotting my murder from inside Rosa's kitchen. It had been 7 months of quiet, careful preparation. We put together a very thorough plan after I gave Sarah the recording back in March. Sarah wanted to arrest Jake immediately, but I urged her to wait. A quick arrest would let him lawyer up and dismiss it all as empty threats. But if we waited, let him think his plan was working, we could catch him in the act. He would be trapped with charges of conspiracy and attempted murder. So we waited. Sarah began her work and got the warrants she needed. She located Rick Donovan and interviewed him privately. Rick confessed everything. Jake gave him $5,000 cash to damage the gas line at my restaurant. Rick's only job was to do it 3 days before October 28th and disappear. Jake planned for me to be alone in the kitchen that night. The room would fill with gas. When I lit the stove, it would explode. A terrible, tragic accident. A grieving widow sells the business and vanishes with the money. But I knew his entire plan. Now, 3 days before his sick deadline, it was my time to make a move. On Friday, October 25th, just after 2 in the afternoon, I stood in my kitchen with my phone. "Oregon Natural Gas, Brenda speaking. How can I help you?" I kept my voice calm and said, "Hello, I am calling from Rosa's kitchen. I think we may have a gas leak. I have smelled something near the stove for a few days." "Okay, Mom. We treat these calls as high priority. I am sending a technician to you right now. Can you please confirm the address? 428 Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard in Portland. That is correct. We will have a person there in less than 60 minutes. Do not use any open flames. If the odor gets stronger, please evacuate the building." "I understand, thank you." I hung up the phone and waited. About 50 minutes later, a white van from the gas company arrived. A man wearing a blue uniform and a hard hat stepped out carrying his tools and a detector. I met him at the door. "Hi, I'm Zoe Martinez, the owner who called." "Eddie Parker," he said, shaking my hand. "Let's find out what is going on." I led him to the kitchen where he immediately started using his equipment to check the stove area. He frowned after a moment. "Ma'am, you were right to call about this valve." He pointed to a brass piece on the gas line behind the stove. "It has been loosened. It was not enough to leak right away, but high heat from the stove would have made gas pour out. It could have caused a huge explosion." My stomach felt sick, but I kept my face perfectly still. "Can you fix it?" "Yes, of course. I will tighten it now and then check your entire system. I will ensure everything is completely safe." For the next 20 minutes, he tightened connections, checked the pipes, and used his detector to scan every single inch of the line. Finally, he stood up. Okay, you are all good to go. Everything is tight. I do not detect any leaks. But I need to ask you, do you know how that valve got so loose? That does not happen by itself. I took a slow breath. I am not really sure. Maybe something fell against it. He gave me a skeptical look but did not push me for more answers. Okay, well, it is safe now. I do have to file a report with my office. Actually, I said, taking $500 in cash from my purse. Could you possibly help me? My husband tends to worry about these things. If he finds out I called the gas company, he will accuse me of being paranoid and it will turn into a big fight. Could you maybe not file the report just as a favor to me? This is for your time. Eddie looked at the cash and then he looked at me. Ma'am, regulations say I have to report all service calls. I understand, I said, but it is all fixed. Everything is safe. I would just rather avoid a fight at home. He thought about it for a second. Then he took the money and slid it into his pocket. All right, but you call us right away if you smell gas again. Do you understand? I will. Thank you very much. When he was gone, I locked the door and let out a long breath. The first step was done, the gas line was safe, but Jake and Rick had no idea. They thought their deadly trap was ready. Still, I needed a failsafe. I had to have my own method for controlling the gas. I picked up my phone to make one more call. Walsh Gas Consulting. This is David speaking. Hello, David. My name is Zoe Martinez. I need to have a remote shut-off valve installed on a commercial gas line, and I need it done today. Money is not a problem. Today is packed, but I think I can squeeze you in around 6 this evening. What is the address? At exactly 6 o'clock, a simple work truck pulled up and David Walsh got out. He was an older man with gray hair, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. My friend Sarah told me he was reliable and very discreet. I let him in through the back door. Show me the line, was all he said. I took him to the kitchen. He looked over the main valve, the connections, and all the pipes. So you want the remote valve installed on this section? Yes, I need to be able to shut the gas off from anywhere just by using my phone. He gave me a very curious look. Are you having some sort of trouble here? Let's just say I need absolute control over what happens on my property. He nodded his head slowly. I see. I can put in a smart valve that connects to a cellular network. You can control it with an app on your smartphone. The installation will take about 2 hours. The price is $1,200. Perfect. David was quiet and focused as he worked. He installed a small valve behind the stove, connected it to a control box, and linked it to an application on my phone. When he finished, he pulled out his own phone. Download this app, Gas Safe Pro. I have already set up your valve with it. See this button? I looked and saw a big red button on the screen that read Emergency Shut Off. If you press that, the valve closes instantly. All gas flow will stop. Your stove will not work. Nothing will turn on. And to turn it on again, you can press the green button, but it is always safer to do it manually right at the valve. That is great. I paid him the $1,200 in cash. He took the money, gave me a slight nod, and left without another word. I was alone in the quiet kitchen, staring at the app on my phone. A single button gave me all the power. I had to see it work. I pressed the red button. I heard the valve click shut. I pressed the green button. It clicked open. I did this 3 more times just to be certain. Then I ordered a handheld gas detector with 2-day shipping. I put my phone away. The restaurant was secure. I controlled the gas now, and Jake was completely in the dark. I walked to the front window and looked out at the street. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows. In just 3 days, Jake would walk in that door expecting me to be dead. He would be expecting a fiery explosion. He would be expecting to inherit everything and simply walk away. But he was deeply mistaken. October 28th was not going to be the day I died. It was going to be the day that Jake Carson's world came crashing down. And I was the one holding the match. On Sunday night, October 27th, I sat alone in the office of my restaurant. I held my phone in my hand, my stomach twisting into knots. Tomorrow was the day Jake planned to have me killed, the day this nightmare would end. The restaurant is always shut on Sundays, so the dining room was completely dark and silent. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the kitchen fridge and the gentle ticking of a clock my grandmother hung 30 years ago. Outside, a storm had started and rain hammered against the windows like 1,000 tiny fists. I opened the Text Now app on my phone. I had installed it the day before to get a burner phone number that could not be traced. I had been using it to communicate with Sarah without Jake's knowledge. But tonight, I had a different plan for it. I was going to use it to set a trap for my own sister. I stared at the blank message screen, my thumb hovering ready to type. This was it. This is how I would bring Maya into the trap. A small, weak part of me wanted to call her. I wanted to give her one last chance to tell her that Jake was just playing her, that he would get rid of her the second she was no longer of use to him. I wanted to scream at her about his secret vasectomy, the fake doctor's reports, and the text messages where he laughed about her dream of having a baby. But I could not do it. Maya made her choice. She chose Jake. She chose to be with my husband. She chose to help him steal Rose's kitchen from my family. And tomorrow she would finally face the consequences of that choice. I took one long, shaky breath and started to type. The message had to sound exactly like Jake. It needed his specific blend of arrogance and excitement. I had studied his texts for months. I knew his patterns. I typed, Babe, Zoe is throwing me a surprise anniversary party tomorrow, October 28th, at 8 in the evening at the restaurant. She is trying to win me back. She invited my mom and friends to try and pressure me. This is actually perfect for us. With all those people there, the accident will be even more convincing. No one will suspect a thing. Just show up like any other guest. Act nice to Zoe. When it happens, after they all leave around 10, we'll both have unbreakable alibis. Do not text me back. Zoe is watching my every move. Just trust me, baby. We will finally be free after tomorrow. I love you. I read the text 4 times to make sure every word was perfect. The story had to sound real. I needed Maya to believe it completely. Then I hit the send button. The message went through. I set my phone down and stared at it, my heart pounding. What if she did not believe the lie? What if she tried to call Jake? What if she decided not to come? I checked the clock. It was 7:34 in the evening. I waited for a minute, then 2 minutes, then 5. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it. It was a message from Maya. Okay, baby, I will be there. It will all be ours after tomorrow, right? Reading her words broke a small piece of my heart. It will all be ours. She actually trusted him. She was certain that Jake loved her. She believed he would divorce me to be with her. They would open their dream restaurant called Maya's Table. They would use the money from selling my family's business to start their new life. She had no idea that Jake had a medical procedure 5 years ago that made it impossible for him to have children. She did not know he lied about wanting a family with her. She could not see that he would abandon her as soon as he got what he wanted. He would leave her with nothing at all. Or worse, he would blame her for the entire crime. I typed a reply, still pretending to be Jake. We will have everything, baby, I promise. I will see you then. Wear something nice and remember to act surprised when you get there. Her reply came back instantly. I will. I love you. I closed the app, deleted the chat, and wiped the phone's memory. I sat by myself in the dark office, staring at nothing, feeling completely empty. I did not feel smart or like I had one. I only felt a deep and heavy sadness, because tomorrow Maya would walk into Rose's kitchen expecting her dreams to come true. But instead, her entire world was about to fall apart. I could not let that stop me. Not now, not after everything Jake had put me through. I stood up, slid my phone into my pocket, and walked to the window. The rain kept falling, smearing the car lights on Hawthorne Boulevard. Somewhere out there, Jake was probably at home, messaging Maya. He was likely perfecting his story for the police about his wife's terrible accident. And somewhere else, Maya was happy, thinking she had won. But tomorrow, both of them would learn the truth. The trap was set for tomorrow. I turned from the window, locked up the office, and drove home. My entire plan was ready. I had full control of the gas line. The evidence was saved in 3 different places. My friend Sarah knew every detail of the plan. The guests had all been invited, and Maya just confirmed she was coming. Tomorrow night, October 28th at 8 o'clock, everyone I needed would be in that restaurant. And when I was done, Jake Carson and Maya Martinez would both be in police custody. Everything was ready. Tomorrow, this would all be over. I woke up at exactly 6 o'clock on Monday morning, October 28th, and reached for my phone. I did not need an alarm. I did not need to sleep. I had only slept for 2 hours anyway. Today was the final day. I opened my gas safety application and pushed the large red button for an emergency shutdown. 2 miles from there, a valve at Rose's kitchen clicked and locked. There would be no gas leak. There would be no explosion. There would be no accident. Jake's evil plan was officially over. I got dressed in the dark, choosing black jeans and a gray sweater. I carefully folded my grandmother's apron and placed it in my bag. I drove through the quiet, wet streets of Portland until I reached Rose's kitchen. I unlocked the back entrance and stepped inside. The restaurant was silent and cold. The air smelled faintly of spices like the ghosts of old meals. I turned on the lights, tied on my grandmother's apron, and got to work. I was not just preparing food today, I was preparing my case against him. There would be 7 courses to represent 7 sins. These 7 pieces of evidence would completely destroy Jake Carson. They would take away everything he tried to steal from me. I started with the menu. I wrote it with chalk on a board that would be displayed in the dining room. Course 1, bitter coffee for the poison. Course 2, the forged contract for the fraud. Course 3, broken promises for his lies about starting a family. Course 4, the betrayal for the affair. Course 5, the murder plot for the gas leak conspiracy. Course 6, ambition for his greed and plans for Maya's table. And Course 7, the truth for the final justice. I stepped back to admire my work. It was perfect, it was direct, emotionless, and exactly what the situation required. Then I began to prepare the food. The first course was very simple. I brewed a pot of coffee that was dark, bitter, and very strong. I poured a single cup and set it on a tray. Next to the cup, I placed a printed report from the medical lab. It said, Ipecac syrup found 15 milliliters per 250 milliliter sample. This was the poison Jake served me every single morning for 3 months. This was his method for slowly breaking me down. The second course was a simple salad. It had fresh greens, a sharp vinegar dressing, and cheese. I served it on a clear glass plate. The forged business contract was placed directly underneath. You could clearly see my fake signature. The sale price was $2.8 million. Marcus Brennan's name was printed at the bottom. The third course was salmon with a lemon sauce. It looked beautiful and delicate, but tasted bitter. I set the dish beside a printed record of Jake's vasectomy from the university hospital. The date on the paper was August 15, 2019. That was 3 years before he proposed to me. It was 5 years before he promised Maya he wanted to have a child with her. The fourth course was roasted lamb with herbs and garlic. I served it with a side of printed text messages that passed between Jake and Maya. One of them said, I love you, baby. Once this is all over, we will have everything. Maya's table is going to open next spring. An entire 18 months of their lives was served up like a main course. Course 5 was the hardest to prepare. I made a dish my grandmother used to make, chiles en nogada. It is a poblano pepper filled with meat and spices. The dish is covered in a white walnut sauce and pomegranate seeds. This dish is a labor of love that takes many hours to prepare. It requires a great deal of patience and care. I served it alongside a printed transcript from a hidden camera recording. Jake's voice could be heard perfectly. He said, I just need you to loosen the valve enough for a slow leak. I will make sure she is the only one in the kitchen. Then you can hear Rick Donovan's voice. He said, if someone dies, Jake, there is no way they can trace it back to you. Course 6 was a tres leches cake for dessert. It was my grandmother's recipe. She taught it to me when I was only 8 years old. I placed a slice next to a printed email from Marcus Brennan to Jake. It read, as soon as the power of attorney is signed, we can finalize the sale of Rose's Kitchen. Wire the $2.8 million and you can start a new life with M in Seattle. Maya's table will be ready to open in the third quarter of 2025. The seventh and final course was just a single piece of dark chocolate on a clean white plate. There was nothing else on the plate. It represented the simple, bitter truth. I spent the entire morning arranging and taking pictures of every dish. I wanted to have backups of the evidence just in case. At noon, Carmen Foster arrived with a van full of restaurant supplies. She brought electric burners, serving platters and extra dishes. She had even cooked some of the food at her own restaurant to help me. Besides Sarah, Carmen was the only other person who knew what was really going to happen. Are you ready to do this? She asked me. She set a tray of fresh empanadas on the kitchen counter. I have been ready since February, I replied. She simply nodded and did not ask me anything else. That is one of the reasons I love her. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, every dish was ready. I covered them all and stored them in the large refrigerator. After that, I moved to the dining room. I placed a large folding screen at the front of the room. I set up a projector on a stand and connected my laptop. I double-checked the slideshow I had made last week. It contained crime scene pictures, email records, and bank records. It also had the video of Jake hiring Rick Donovan. It was all the proof I needed to bring him down. At 3 o'clock, Sarah Morgan came by. She was not on duty and was wearing jeans and a jacket, but I could still see her police badge on her belt. Are you okay? She asked. I am okay. Jake has no clue what is about to happen to him. She nodded. I will get here at 7:45. I will sit at a table in the back and act like a normal customer. If anything goes wrong, I am only 2 seconds away. Nothing will go wrong, I promised her. She looked at me for a few seconds, then she gently squeezed my shoulder. Your grandmother would be so very proud of you. I felt too emotional to speak, so I just nodded my head. At 5 o'clock, I started to set the tables. I prepared 15 places with white tablecloths, candles, and name cards. I put Jake's card at the head of the main table. Maya was on his right and Marcus Brennan was on his left. I placed my seat at the far end of the table, facing him directly. It was the seat of power. At 6 o'clock, I hung the chalkboard menu. The board listed the 7 courses for 7 sins. At 6:30, I changed into a simple black dress. I put my hair up and wore the silver earrings my grandmother gave me. I looked at myself in the mirror and did not know the person I saw. I looked much older, much stronger, and completely prepared. At 7 o'clock, I began lighting the candles. The dining room was filled with a soft and warm light. It looked like a lovely painting, but it was really a lovely trap. I stood in the doorway and looked at everything one last time. The tables, the projector, the evidence, and the food. I had everything I needed to finally end this nightmare. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jake. "I'm on my way. See you soon, baby." I did not reply. Then a second text arrived from Maya. "I am almost there. I am nervous but also excited." I smiled a cold, thin smile. She had every right to be nervous. At 7:30, I opened a bottle of wine. I poured myself a glass that I would not drink. I just held it, feeling its weight in my hand. Everything was perfectly arranged. The dinner party was about to start, and Jake had no idea he was the main event tonight. Before I reveal what happened on October 28th, the night justice was served for dinner, type truth below. This will let me know you are prepared. What happens next will be a shock. A small note. I have changed some details for clarity. If intense situations make you uneasy, this may be your moment to leave. The dining room of Rose's kitchen glowed softly from 2 dozen candles. Their flames danced in the cool October breeze from a nearby window. I stood by the host's station. I wore a deep burgundy dress I had picked for this occasion. The dress was elegant and confident. It was the kind of dress worn by a woman who is aware of her own strength. The air was filled with the scent of roasted garlic and fresh basil. I could also smell the sweet aroma of caramelized onions drifting from the kitchen. I had just spent 3 hours crafting a 5 course meal that no one would ever forget. My hands were perfectly steady. I smoothed the white linen tablecloth one last time. I adjusted the single red rose in its vase. I looked at my phone. The time was 7:58 in the evening. In just 2 minutes, my first guest would be here. The trap I spent 8 months setting was about to be sprung. At exactly 8:05, the door swung open. Jake walked in. His wide shoulders seemed to fill the entire doorway. His smile was warm and familiar, but it was a complete act. He was in the charcoal gray suit I had bought for our first anniversary. He used to say it made him feel powerful. He moved across the room and pulled me into a hug. He kissed my forehead with the same false affection he showed on our wedding day. "Happy anniversary, sweetheart," he murmured into my hair. His voice was low and personal. I forced a smile and leaned against him. I needed to play the role of the devoted wife one final time. "Thank you for being here," I whispered in return. My fingers touched my phone where the remote gas shutoff app was ready in my pocket. Maya arrived at 8:10 in the evening. Her red hair was gathered in a graceful knot. Her emerald green dress was clearly chosen to capture Jake's eye. She paused at the entrance, looking around with phony surprise. "Zoe, you asked me to come," she said. Her tone was breezy, as if we were just good friends meeting up. "I only planned to stop in and say hello." I smiled back at her, but my smile had no warmth. "Of course I invited you, Maya. You are like family." Her eyes darted toward Jake for a moment before she looked away. At 8:15, Marcus Brennan made his entrance. His silver hair was perfectly in place. His navy blue suit was flawless. He shook Jake's hand with solid confidence like an old business acquaintance. "Jake, it is wonderful to see you," Marcus said with ease, patting his shoulder. "Zoe, thank you for the invitation. Your grandmother's restaurant is an icon in this city." I gave a polite nod. I saw Jake's smile tighten just a little. His eyes followed Marcus to his seat with the sharp focus of a predator watching a rival. Linda Carson, Jake's mother, entered at 8:20. Her silver hair was arranged in gentle waves. Her lavender blouse and pearl necklace gave her the look of a woman who had perfected the art of grace. She drew me into a warm hug and her classic floral scent enveloped me. "My dear daughter-in-law," she said, her voice full of genuine affection, "I am so proud of you both. 2 years have passed. Time really does fly when you are in love." I held on to her a bit too long, feeling a pang of guilt because she was unaware of what her son had done. At 8:25 in the evening, Detective Sarah Morgan arrived wearing a simple black blazer and jeans with her badge concealed in her purse. She gave me a hug and a look that showed she understood. "Zoe, it has been too long," she announced loudly for the benefit of the room. "I am so glad you wanted me to celebrate with you." I squeezed her hand quickly, a silent signal that she was not there as a guest, but as a witness. Over the next 15 minutes, the final 10 guests arrived in steady succession. My Aunt Carmen appeared at 8:28 in the evening, still dressed in her nurse's scrubs from her shift at Providence Hospital. My cousin Mateo and his wife Isabella came at 8:32 in the evening. Their 2-year-old daughter Anna was sleeping soundly in her mother's arms. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, the elderly couple who had been regulars at Rosa's kitchen for over 20 years, came at 8:36 in the evening, carrying a bottle of wine and offering kind smiles. Father Miguel from Our Lady of Sorrows, who had married Jake and me 2 years prior, came at 8:40. He brought a blessing for us and carried a prayer book under his arm. Jenny, my best friend from culinary school, showed up at 8:43 in the evening. Her camera was around her neck, as it always was. Finally, Benjamin Hartley, my lawyer, arrived at 8:47 in the evening. His quiet demeanor was an assurance that everything said tonight would be properly recorded and legally binding. By 8:50 in the evening, all 15 guests were seated around the long table I had set up in the dining room, their faces illuminated by candlelight. Their conversations created a low hum of laughter and chatter, making the room feel deceptively ordinary. I stood at the head of the table, lifted my wine glass, and waited for the room to fall silent. Thank you all for joining me tonight, I began, my voice steady and clear. 2 years ago, Jake and I stood before many of you and made a promise to love and honor each other for life. Tonight, I wish to celebrate that vow with the people who mean the most to us. I paused for a second, looking at every person at the table. I saw Jake's confident smile, Maya's carefully neutral expression, Marcus Brennan's polite curiosity, Linda Carson's proud beam, Sarah Morgan's watchful eyes, and the others. They were all expectant, completely unaware of the storm that was about to break. I have prepared a very special meal for all of you this evening. I continued, my voice full of warmth and hospitality. It consists of 5 courses, with each one inspired by a memory from my grandmother Rose's recipe book. But I also have another thing I want to share with you all. It is a tale about trust, betrayal, and the lengths people go to protect what they cherish. I saw Jake's smile waver for a split second. I noticed his hand tighten its grip on his wine glass, and I knew in that moment he sensed that something was off. I set my glass down, walked calmly to the kitchen door, and gestured to the first course arranged on the counter. It was a simple plate of heirloom tomato bruschetta with a balsamic reduction and fresh basil. The first course is on its way, I announced, turning to face my guests again. And with it, you will get the first chapter of this evening's story. I met Jake's gaze across the table, holding his eyes for a long, heavy moment before I smiled. I think you will all find it quite revealing. By 8:55 that evening on October 28, 2024, all 15 guests were seated at the long candlelit table in Rosa's kitchen. Their faces were alight with joyful anticipation for the night's festivities. I stood at the head of the table with a silver tray, knowing that the next 35 minutes would shatter every pleasant illusion in that room. I set a white porcelain coffee cup directly in front of Jake, steam curling from its rim, and I began. For 3 months, for 90 consecutive days, my husband brought me coffee every morning, I stated, my voice firm and loud. He played the part of a caring, attentive man, but he failed to mention that each cup contained 15 milliliters of ipecac syrup, a substance used to induce violent vomiting. I pulled a folded toxicology report from my pocket and presented it to everyone. This is from the Providence Medical Lab, dated February 19, 2024. It confirms systematic poisoning with ipecac. Jake was deliberately making me ill so I would be too exhausted to resist what he had planned. Jake's face went pale, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the table, but I gave him no chance to speak. I walked to the laptop on a side table and projected the first email onto the wall. The second truth is about theft, I said, my voice now sharp and unyielding. This is an email from Marcus Brennan to Jake dated November 3, 2023. It reads, once you have power of attorney, the transfer will take 90 days. Make certain she is too frail to contest it. And here is Jake's response from January 22, 2024. The ipecac is working. She is losing weight and barely has the strength for the kitchen. We will own everything by April. I turned my eyes to Marcus, whose face was a tight mask of barely controlled fury. You offered $2.8 million for my family's restaurant. Mr. Brennan, you operated on the assumption that I would never uncover the truth. Marcus shot up from his chair, but Sarah Morgan moved from her post near the door, her hand resting on her concealed badge. Please sit down, she said in a calm tone. You will not be leaving. I hit another key, splitting the screen to display 2 different medical reports. The third truth involves the lies Jake told my own sister, I announced, now looking at Maya, who appeared utterly bewildered. I showed them two reports. One was a fake fertility document from a clinic that does not exist, saying Jake had a low sperm count. The other was his real medical file, dated August 15th, 2019. It proved he had a vasectomy 5 years earlier. I let the silence hang in the air. That clinic is not real, Maya. Jake made that document to string you along. He could never give you a child because he never wanted one with you. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she stared at Jake in disbelief. Is this true? She whispered. Jake said nothing. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles pulse. The next truth came in a set of photographs. There was Jake and Maya kissing in a hotel lobby, holding hands downtown, and embracing outside a wine bar. I hired a private investigator to take these pictures over the past 6 months, I explained. My husband was having an affair with my own sister right under my roof. Linda Carson gasped, covering her mouth as she looked at the photos. Jacob, she cried out, her voice breaking with pain. How could you? Jake finally found his voice, speaking quickly and low. Mom, it is not what it looks like. Zoe is twisting everything. I cut him off. Am I? I then played an audio file from my laptop and Jake's own voice filled the room. Rick, I need you to do something. At Rose's kitchen, find the gas line behind the stove. Just loosen the valve enough for a slow leak. It will not be noticeable at first, but when someone lights that stove, a gruff voice replied with suspicion. Are you trying to cause an explosion? Jake's voice was cold and clear. I am trying to cause an accident. $5,000 for you in cash. October 28th after 8 p.m. When the recording ended, I held up my phone and showed them the remote gas shut-off app. The fifth truth is that he tried to have me killed, I said. Jake hired Rick Donovan to sabotage this kitchen tonight. He wanted this building to explode at 8 o'clock, killing me and everyone here, including his mother. Linda collapsed in her chair, sobbing, while Aunt Carmen rushed to comfort her. Jake leaped to his feet, his face red with fury. I did not want anyone else to get hurt, he shouted. It was only supposed to be for... He stopped, but it was too late. He had confessed. I presented my final piece of evidence, a text conversation between Jake and Maya from October 1st. The sixth truth is all about greed, I said. Jake texted Maya. Once Zoe is gone, we'll open our own place, Maya's table, just for us. Maya had replied, I cannot wait. I love you. Maya buried her face in her hands, her body shaking. I set my phone down on the table, and the seventh truth, I said, my voice turning to ice, is about justice. Sarah Morgan stepped into the light. The badge on her belt was now visible, and her expression was all business. Jacob Carson, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and solicitation of arson, she announced. Marcus Brennan, you are under arrest as an accessory to fraud. She pulled out handcuffs and snapped them onto Jake's wrists. He just stood there, his face as white as a sheet. Detective James Torres entered from the back and cuffed Marcus just as efficiently. You have the right to remain silent, Sarah continued, reading him his rights in a steady voice. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I watched them lead Jake away at 9:28 p.m. on October 28, 2024. His head was down, his shoulders slumped in defeat. A great weight lifted off my own shoulders. It did not feel like a victory, just the calm relief of justice served. Maya was still at the table, crying silently. Linda Carson reached for my hand, her eyes swollen and red. Zoe, I am so very sorry, she whispered. I had no idea. I squeezed her hand gently. I know, Linda, you did not do anything wrong. After the door closed behind Jake and Marcus at 9:30 at night, the only sound was Maya's quiet sobbing. I looked around at my guests. They were shaken and sad, but they were all safe. It is over, I breathed. It is finally over. 5 minutes after the arrests, at 9:35 p.m., Detective Sarah Morgan stood in the center of the kitchen. It was the evening of October 28, 2024. Her badge gleamed in the dim light as she addressed the guests. They were still seated, their faces pale with shock. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah began, her voice calm and authoritative. What you witnessed tonight was the conclusion of an 8-month investigation into fraud, attempted murder, and poisoning. Please remain where you are while my team secures the scene. She glanced at Jake, who was cuffed and glaring. Jacob Carson, you face multiple charges. First, attempted murder for the gas leak you arranged to kill your wife and 14 others. Second, poisoning for administering ipecac syrup to her for 90 days from November 15, 2023 to February 14, 2024. Third, conspiracy to commit fraud for faking documents to steal Rose's kitchen, a property valued at $2.8 million. Fourth, solicitation for arson and murder for your contact with Rick Donovan on February 27, 2024, offering him $5,000 to tamper with the gas line. And fifth, identity fraud for creating false medical records from a non-existent Oregon wellness clinic. Sarah recited each charge evenly. Each one seemed to strike Jake like a physical blow. His rage crumbled into panic. "This is a setup!" Jake screamed, his voice cracking. "Zoe planned all of this. She framed me." Sarah's expression did not change. "Mr. Carson, we have a recording of you planning the gas line sabotage. We have emails between you and Marcus Brennan discussing the poisoning and property fraud. We also have lab reports, handwriting analysis, a statement from your wife's attorney, and video from a camera in your home office." She paused to let the weight of her words land. "You framed yourself." She then faced Marcus, who stood silently beside Jake. His silver hair was a mess, and his expensive suit looked rumpled. "Marcus Brennan, you are charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, being an accessory to attempted murder, and racketeering. This is for your role in helping Jacob Carson steal Rose's kitchen through forgery and threats. Your emails with Mr. Carson from October 10, 2023 to January 22, 2024 serve as clear evidence of your criminal intent." Maya was trembling near the far wall, her face stained with tears. She was not in handcuffs, but she shook with fear. Sarah approached her, speaking in a softer but firm voice. "Maya Martinez, on October 27, 2024 at 7:30 in the evening, you received a text. It appeared to be from Jake asking you to come here to be his alibi for a fatal explosion. Is that correct?" Maya nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes. He told me Zoe was throwing a party and he needed me here. He said we could finally be together. He told me it would look like an accident so no one would ever know. I thought he meant the divorce would be simple. I never knew he planned to hurt her." Sarah studied her for a moment. "Were you aware he was poisoning her?" Maya shook her head violently. "No, I swear I did not know. I knew Jake was seeing me and wanted a divorce, but I never imagined he was capable of something so awful." Sarah produced a small digital recorder. "Maya, I am offering you a deal. If you cooperate fully with the Portland police and the district attorney and testify against both Jake Carson and Marcus Brennan, we can offer you leniency. Any additional evidence you provide about their criminal activities will result in reduced charges and a much lighter sentence. Do you understand?" Maya looked at me, her eyes red and pleading. "Zoe, please," she whispered. "I am so sorry. I was so wrong. I actually believed he loved me." I remained perfectly still, my arms folded across my chest, my face a mask. I had nothing to say to her. At 9:42 that night, Detective James Torres entered through the back. He was accompanied by two forensics technicians carrying large black equipment cases. "Sarah, we're ready to begin processing," he announced. Sarah gestured to a nearby table, bagged the laptop, the coffee cup next to Mr. Carson, and Mrs. Martinez's phone with the gas shut-off app. "Also collect the documents," she presented. "I want the gas valve behind the stove photographed and secured as evidence. The engineer for the remote system has already provided a signed statement confirming the sabotage by Rick Donovan." One technician began snapping photos of the table, the laptop, and the gas valve. The other placed each object into labeled evidence bags. Torres approached Jake and pulled a card from his pocket. "Mr. Carson, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to an attorney before we speak and to have one with you during questioning. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. If you decide to answer questions now without one, you can stop at any time." "Now that I have read you your rights, will you talk to me without a lawyer present?" Jake just glared at him, his jaw clenched, and refused to say a word. At 9:50 in the evening, Sarah and Torres professionally escorted Jake and Marcus to the front door. Maya trailed behind them, her hands cuffed, still sobbing quietly. She had already agreed to cooperate and signed a statement promising to testify. As they reached the doorway, Jake turned to look at me one last time. "You will regret this, Zoe," he said, his voice low and filled with venom. "You think this is a victory, but you have destroyed everything." I met his stare and did not look away. "No, Jake," I answered him calmly. "You destroyed everything. I just held you accountable for it." The door clicked shut behind them at 9:53 that night, leaving the room in a state of peaceful silence. Linda Carson was at the table, crying on Aunt Carmen's shoulder. Father Miguel whispered a quiet prayer. Benjamin Hartley came to my side and rested a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Zoe," he said. I could only nod, unable to find my voice. For the first time in 8 months, the crushing weight on my chest began to lift. On December 18, 2024, 7 weeks and 3 days after Jake's arrest, I was finally free. I sat in the front row of courtroom 412 in downtown Portland. My hands were clasped in my lap, my coat buttoned up against the winter cold. I watched as Judge Margaret Whitmore entered, her black robe trailing behind her, her expression serious and difficult to read. The trial had lasted 3 exhausting weeks, from November 27th to December 16th. Now, the final judgment was here. The room was full. Reporters from the city papers were in the back, their pens ready. My lawyer, Benjamin Hartley, was beside me, his briefcase on the floor. A few rows behind us sat detectives Sarah Morgan and James Torres, but Jake's mother, Linda Carson, was not present. She had disowned him in a public statement on November 30th. Judge Whitmore adjusted her glasses and looked at the three people on trial. This court will now announce the sentences for Jacob Michael Carson, Marcus James Brennan, and Maya Elena Martinez, she declared, her voice firm. Mr. Carson, please stand. Jake stood up slowly. His orange jumpsuit was a shocking contrast to his old designer suits. His face was pale and thin after 2 months behind bars. Judge Whitmore looked down from a high bench. Jacob Michael Carson, a jury has found you guilty on multiple charges. These charges include attempted first-degree murder and aggravated assault by poisoning. You are also guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, arson for hire, and identity theft. The evidence against you could not be denied. We had recorded calls, emails, and reports on the poison. We reviewed forged documents and heard from many witnesses, including Maya Martinez. It is clear you planned for months to poison your wife, steal her business, and then end her life. You set up an explosion that would have also taken 14 innocent lives. The judge paused, letting her words sink into the quiet courtroom. This court finds your actions to be among the most severe examples of domestic violence and financial abuse we have seen. You demonstrated a complete disregard for human life. For these crimes, you are sentenced to 12 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary. You will not be eligible for parole for the first 8 years. Upon your release, you will have 5 years of supervised probation. You are also ordered to pay $500,000 in restitution to Mrs. Zoe Martinez. This will be paid from the sale of your assets, including your car and all investments. All of your claims to Rose's Kitchen are hereby terminated and full ownership is returned to Mrs. Martinez. Jake's lawyer made a move to speak about an appeal, but Jake remained silent. His shoulders slumped as an officer led him away. Next, Judge Whitmore turned to Marcus. Mr. Brennan, please stand. Marcus got to his feet. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his expression unreadable. Marcus James Brennan, you are guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud. You are also guilty of being an accessory to attempted murder. You conspired with Jacob Carson to illegally seize Rose's Kitchen. You used intimidation, forgery, and you took advantage of Mrs. Martinez's poor health, which was caused by the poison. Your emails with Mr. Carson from October 2023 to January 2024 show your deep involvement in this plot. You are hereby sentenced to 8 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary. This will be followed by 3 years of supervised probation. For 15 years after your release, you are forbidden from owning or managing any restaurant in Oregon. Cascade Dining Group has already terminated your employment and severed all ties. The court notes the company was extremely helpful in this investigation. Finally, the judge's gaze fell upon Maya. She sat with her hands clasped, her red hair pulled back. Her eyes were red and swollen. Miss Martinez, please rise. Maya stood unsteadily, and her lawyer placed a supportive hand on her arm. Maya Elena Martinez, you have pleaded guilty to being an accessory and to obstruction of justice. The court acknowledges your full cooperation with the police, which began on the night of October 28th. Your testimony against both Mr. Carson and Mr. Brennan was essential. We also accept that you were unaware of the full murderous extent of Mr. Carson's plan. However, you had an affair with your sister's husband. You accepted money from their illegal activities, and you agreed to provide an alibi for what you believed was a minor accident. This demonstrates a severe lack of judgment and moral character. You are sentenced to 2 years of supervised probation. You must also complete 400 hours of community service within the first 12 months. You will attend mandatory counseling 2 times a month for your entire probation period. You are forbidden from contacting Mrs. Zoe Martinez in any way unless she provides written consent. Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Thank you, Your Honor." When the judge's gavel fell, the courtroom began to empty. I remained in my seat for a moment, just staring at the empty bench. Even with the victory, I felt a deep emptiness. Sarah came and sat beside me. Zoe, you did it, she said quietly. Justice was served. Now you can finally start to heal. I slowly nodded my head. I know, but this does not feel the way I thought it would. She gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze. It never does, but what matters is that you made it through. As we stood to leave, Benjamin handed me a sealed envelope. This came for you yesterday, he explained. It's from Maya. I waited until I was home in my quiet apartment that night to open it. Inside was a note written by hand. Zoe, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I was foolish, selfish, and blind to the truth. I will live with what I've done for the rest of my life. I am truly sorry. I folded the letter and put it away without writing back. Jake was in prison. Marcus's career was over. Maya had lost her family. I had my restaurant again. I was safe and I had found justice. But I had also lost the sister I thought I knew. I lost the marriage I once cherished. And I lost my ability to trust that the people I loved would not try to destroy me. The sun rose over the ocean at 6:15 in the morning on May 15th, 2025. It lit up the sands of Cannon Beach as I walked toward Haystack Rock. I hugged my grandmother Rosa's old cookbook to my chest. Its leather cover was worn smooth from decades of use. The pages were filled with stains from flour and spices, a history of the woman who taught me that cooking was not just about food. It was about resilience. It was about pouring love into something even when the world tried to take everything away. I had woken up at 4:30 on that Sunday morning. I felt a deep need to come to this place, a 90-minute drive from Portland. Rosa always brought me here when I was a child, whenever I felt sad or lost. My dear daughter, she would say, holding my hand as we watched the sea, the water makes everything clean again. No matter how much it hurts, the waves always come back, and life goes on. 6 months had passed since Judge Whitmore sentenced Jake to 12 years in prison and Marcus Brennan to 8 years. It had been 6 months since Maya was given 2 years of probation for her testimony. 6 months since I had walked out of that courtroom feeling hollow, wondering if justice could ever fill the void where my trust used to be. But I did exactly what Rosa taught me. I began to rebuild. The $850,000 from her trust plus the $500,000 from Jake gave me more than money. It gave me the freedom to fix everything he had tried to destroy. I paid off every single debt for Rose's kitchen. This included the fraudulent loans Marcus had pressured Jake into making me sign. I hired a team to remodel the dining area with warm, inviting new walls. We expanded from 25 seats to 40. We installed a state-of-the-art kitchen to replace the one Jake had ruined, and we commissioned an artist to paint a mural of Rosa on the back wall, her hands covered in flour, her smile bright and eternal. But the most important renovation was one that no one could see. This past February, I launched the Rosa Heritage Fund. It's a foundation that provides grants for up to $20,000 to women escaping domestic violence. We help them build their own businesses in the food service industry. The fund provides free legal support, coaching for business, and a network of female entrepreneurs in Oregon. We awarded our first 3 grants in March. The recipients were starting bakeries, catering services, and even food trucks. Hearing them describe their dreams brought tears to my eyes for the first time in months. They were not tears of sorrow, but tears of hope and healing. We reopened Rose's Kitchen on the 8th of April. Our new menu featured my grandmother's classics alongside dishes I developed over the winter. My Aunt Carmen came on as my new business partner. She invested her savings and her background as a nurse to ensure a supportive workplace for our team. Before we knew it, Portland Monthly featured our story. Then the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association named us as a nominee for Best Family Restaurant of 2025. But with all the recognition, the full dining room, and the glowing reviews, a small part of me still felt broken. There was a wound that had not yet closed. A week ago, on May 8th, I was locking up the restaurant around 9 in the evening. That is when I noticed Maya standing across the street. She had her red hair tied back and her hands tucked into her pockets. She didn't try to approach me. For a full 10 minutes, she just stood there. Her eyes moved over the glowing windows, the smiling guests, and the large mural of Rosa. Finally, she turned and walked away. The following morning, I discovered white roses and a note on my porch. The message read, Zoe, I am not asking for your forgiveness. I only need you to know I am sorry for what I did every day. I brought the flowers inside and read her words a dozen times, but I did not reply. I was not ready. I knew I might never be. Some betrayals cut too deep to ever truly forgive. That is true even when the person who hurt you was a victim too. The ocean waves washed over my feet on the beach when my phone buzzed. It was an email from a woman named Elena Ramirez. I opened it and read her message under the bright sun. She wrote, "My name is Elena Ramirez, and I am 29 years old. I just left a difficult marriage with my 7-year-old daughter. We have absolutely nothing. A women's shelter in Portland mentioned your Rosa Heritage Fund. It has always been my dream to become a professional chef. I saw that you were hiring for your kitchen staff. I do not have a lot of experience, but I am a very quick learner and I will work harder than anyone." Her email ended with a simple question: "Will you give me a chance?" A feeling of warmth and purpose bloomed inside me as I reread her words. I typed out a response immediately. "Elena, I would be honored to meet you. Please join me at Rosa's Kitchen this Monday at 10 in the morning. We can start this new chapter together." After sending the email, I looked out at Haystack Rock, which stood strong against the endless waves. I thought about Jake in his prison cell, Marcus losing everything, and Maya facing the consequences of her actions. I thought about how they nearly ruined my life and my restaurant. Then my mind shifted to Eleanor, my Aunt Carmen, and all the people who found a second home at Rosa's Kitchen. I opened my grandmother Rosa's old cookbook to the inscription she wrote on the first page: "Never let anyone take your dreams away from you." Tracing the words with my finger, I could almost hear her voice reminding me that life, like the ocean, always moves forward. I still had not forgiven Maya, and a part of me thought I never could, but I was finally starting to forgive myself for trusting the people who hurt me. I was forgiving myself for not recognizing the truth when it was right in front of me. Rose's Kitchen was so much more than a restaurant now. It had become a sanctuary. It was living proof that women like Elena and me could endure the worst and still build something beautiful. I made a quiet promise to always protect what my grandmother built. It was never just about her recipes, it was about the hope we offered women who needed a fresh start. The sun started to rise over the ocean, painting the sky with brilliant colors. For the first time in a very long year, I felt a deep sense of peace. The pain had not vanished, but my life now had a clear purpose. I tucked the cookbook under my arm and walked back to my car. I was ready to go home, ready for Monday, and completely ready for whatever came next. And I need you to remember this: God revealed the truth to me 3 times before October 28th, with the lab results, the hidden recording, and with Maya's confession. Every time I chose to act with wisdom instead of rage. When the betrayal comes from inside your own family, it is the deepest kind of hurt. But please remember, God gives us more than the strength to endure. He provides the clarity we need to find our way forward. I chose legal justice over personal revenge. I did this not to destroy Jake and Marcus, but to make sure they could never harm another woman. Please do not make the same mistakes I did. I was far too trusting and completely ignored the warning signs. I thought that love alone would be my shield. Betrayal from a loved one does not arrive with a warning siren. It creeps in silently, in something as simple as a cup of coffee or a forged signature. It hides behind the warm smile of a person who calls you a sweet nickname while secretly plotting your ruin. If you have a feeling that something is wrong, please trust that feeling. Your intuition is your guardian. The moment you dismiss that inner voice, you open the door for someone to hurt you. So here is my advice: protect your finances, document everything, and never let love blind you to the need for self preservation. Getting even might feel good for a moment, but true justice is what brings you peace at night. It comes from seeing the truth prevail in a court of law. And above all, when your world is shattered by the people you love, rebuilding is not about forgetting what happened. It is about transforming your pain into a purpose. Rosa's Kitchen serves more than just meals. It now serves hope. And I honestly believe that was God's plan for me all along. If this story resonated with you, I would love for you to leave a comment about your own journey with betrayal. Subscribe for more true stories of resilience, and please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they can get through this. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story. Your attention is a gift. Please be aware, the stories shared on this channel may contain some fictional elements for educational purposes. If you are looking for a different kind of story, feel free to browse the other videos we have on our channel. Stay safe, be strong, and always remember, you are not nearly as alone as the betrayal makes you feel.